Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 129 of the Rise Up and Share Your Medicine podcast. My name is Lisa Espinosa, and I'm a spiritual career coach. And I love connecting with you every week to help you really align with your mission, to help the helpers, the change makers, the visionaries, the social change agents, whatever the labels aren't important. The point is that you're here to help. You've been helping. And so the work that I do is to help you share your gifts in a more authentic way, help you release whatever blocks or obstacles are in the way. Most of them really are internal. Even if there's external blocks, when you deal with the internal stuff, the external clears. I know that to be true. And to help you do that, because the world needs your gifts, but to do that in a way that really cultivates a feeling of fulfillment and purpose without the hustle and burnout. So that's what we're here for every week. And today's topic is the title of this podcast. I titled it Release the Fear of Your Power. And I'm so happy to be talking about that today because a lot of helpers, a lot of the women that are drawn to my work, I also have male clients, of course, so this applies to you as well, but mostly my clients are identify as women. And there's this fear and misunderstanding about power. And so what ends up happening is that then the helpers, the women who have this intention, this prayer, this desire, this longing to be of service, to lead, to create change, end up not stepping fully into their power when it's precisely the people that that need to step into their power. And so I really want to clear up some misconceptions about what being powerful means. I want to help you identify what fears you have about your power. And I want to give you some steps on how to like heal that. So the first thing to know is that your power is sacred. It comes from your soul. Your true power comes from your soul. And when I say the word soul, you might use a different word, but I'm talking about your divine self, that part of you that is your true essence, that is eternally connected to source, that is vast and infinite, in powerful. Your soul is powerful. So when I say your power is sacred, it's because your power comes from your soul. And so for you to understand that, and when you are having a human life as you are having, as if you're watching this, as I am having, we know that we try to remember that we are actually a soul having a human experience. And part of the intention of having this human life is to embody the different qualities of our soul, and that includes our soul's power. So the first thing that is important to remember is that your soul is powerful, and so your power is sacred. What gets confusing is that we also have an ego, right? We have an ego structure. And our ego, everybody has it. The ego structure is the part of us that believes we're separate from source, we're separate from God. It's the part that judges, compares. It's the part that believes in lack and limitation. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually what makes this such a courageous journey to be human, is that you are a divine being having a human experience because you have an ego structure. And so the reason so many helpers who have such a big heart get scared of power is because they're thinking about the power when power comes from the ego, not from the soul. So we've all experienced, right? Somebody who has a lot of power that comes from the ego and abuses that power and is toxic with that power. and is negative with that power, whether it's a politician, whether it's a boss, a parent, a colleague, whatever it is. And as a sensitive person, most of my clients are sensitive like I am. That is terrifying, right? And so a very unfortunate connection gets made in our nervous system that power is bad or scary or something that we're not supposed to have. And it's unfortunate because it's actually your responsibility to harness your power, to steward your power, to fully embrace your power, the power that comes from your soul, because that is how you will have the greatest impact on those that you are here to serve. It's like a light bulb, right? You think of yourself as a light bulb, and the wattage of a light bulb, how strong the light bulb is your power. So if you're always like, no, 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 I just have to stay really dim because that's safer, you never fully express your full light. You never go to the wattage that is your capacity. That's a disservice, not just to you, but to those you're here to serve. And so that's part of the first teaching, is just remembering, oh, my power is sacred. And not only is it sacred, it's my responsibility to harness it, to steward it, to bring it into the world. So if you've been following me for a while, you know that I often talk about how we each have a unique soul's medicine, right? This medicine that only you can bring. And that medicine is made up of the training of your life, the transformative experiences you've had, all the courage that you've shown in your life, all of the challenges you've overcome. And then yes, combined with your professional training, combined with the gifts that the divine bestowed upon you. That's your unique soul's medicine. Your power is essential to sharing that medicine, right? Your power is the one that like is the fuel that radiates, unleashes your medicine to the world. And so it's important to really identify what is your relationship with power, with your power. And you might be like, I have no idea what my relationship is to my power, but you can ask yourself that now. Like, how do you relate to your power? Maybe you're like, I'm just scared of it. I just don't even think of myself as a powerful person. Or maybe you think, I am powerful and it freaks me out. I don't want to abuse my power. Or maybe you think, well, I don't want to show people I'm powerful because they're going to be jealous or they're going to hurt me or they're going to, whatever, want something from me, want a lot from me. Think about your relationship with power. Think about the thoughts you have about your power. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't even think about my power, then your relationship with power it's a very weak one, right? It's like, think about having a relationship with someone you love, right? You think about them and you plan outings to have with them and you help them, and that's how you build a relationship. So if I ask the question, what are your thoughts about your power? And you're like, I don't even think about it. Then you're like, oh, wow, I need to strengthen my relationship with power. But sometimes you might think, I don't think about my power. But when you really sit and think about it, you might be like, actually, I do have thoughts about my power. And maybe your thoughts are like, I don't have any. I feel like I don't have a lot of power. Or like I said before, I feel like power is scary. People abuse it. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to abuse power. So I don't want any. Right? So think about, like, what is your relationship with power? What are the fears you have about it? And as you do that, as you start to identify that and you normalize it, you bring it out of your brain, right? Maybe you write it on a journal or you just say it out loud and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is my fear. My fear. When I was tuning in, I mean, I've been doing this work with my power for a long time. So I was tuning in and I'm like, what is it? I think in the beginning, for sure, years ago, my answer would have been like, oh, I'm afraid, people with power abuse others or oppress others. So I don't want to have it. I don't ever want to do that. But I've worked through a lot of that. So I'm really at a place where I trust myself. I trust that I'm not going to do that. I'm not saying that I'm beyond that. I think that's something we always have to reflect on, but that's not my fear anymore, or at least my biggest fear at all. And so I was like tuning in. I'm like, what is it? And I realized that there was some part of me that was like afraid that can I even hold all my power? Almost like this fear that I'll just like what's the word I'm thinking of? When too much electricity flows through a light bulb, like kind of like short circuit, like brr, it'll be too much or something. So it was really interesting to know. It's like, oh, there's a part of me that's afraid that what if I can't handle, I can't handle the power flowing through me. There was that fear. And then there was this fear of like, oh, what if I really step into my power? Now, I wasn't conscious of this. It was in preparing for this podcast. This was surprising to me. It was like, if I'm really step into my power, people are going to want things from me. That's like a common thing for me. Like a lot is going to be expected from me. Too much is going to be expected from me. Something along those lines. So you think about it. When I coach my clients, I think there's often is that fear of like, oh, I don't want to acknowledge my power or you know draw too much attention to it or have people judge me for it. There's a lot of that. So you identify what it is for you and really start to embrace the fact that your power is a gift. It was a gift given to you, and it is a gift that you then are meant to share with others. Because think about what happens. And one of my teachers posed this question years ago at an event she was leading. And she was talking about how so many people that are very emotionally immature, maybe they're narcissistic or they're very selfish or they're very materialistic. I want to be clear, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with money or material things, but when you say materialistic, is like that's somebody who has that energy is like that's what's the most important thing over anything else, right? So she was saying so many people that are emotionally immature, whether it's narcissism, whether it's selfishness, whether it's materialism, whatever it is, they have no problem with power. They want power. They want more of their power. They're on a hunt for power. Now we know that power is coming, really, they're asking for that power from their ego structure, not their soul. But she posed this question like, all those people who are emotionally immature, who really should not be in charge of a lot of stuff, they're all grabbing onto the power. And then all of the other people who have such a longing to help, to be of service, to make the world a better place, to help others, to bring about change, to find solutions, to bring about unity, are like, no, 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 don't give me power, don't give me power, I'm scared of it. She's like, what's going to happen to the world if that continues? And when she asked that question, I was like, oh my gosh. It was really like, I understood in a way I hadn't before that it truly is our responsibility to own our power and embody it and express it. And the way you express your power will look very different than mine. It's meant to. We all will express it differently. There are also misconceptions about what power looks like, right? We tend to think of somebody that's very loud and maybe abrasive and all of that. And that's not true at all. Yes, there can be somebody that's powerful that has a very big, kind of more outer expressive personality. And then there can also be someone really powerful that has a more quiet personality. I mean, think about Gandhi in India. He was an incredibly powerful leader, and he was not only physically small, but he was not, he was very soft spoken, like a very kind of like gentle and powerful energy. And there's examples of that throughout the world. So please do not, if you're watching this and you're like, well, I'm really sensitive or I'm not Like some people, it's like your power will look exactly how it's meant to look. That is one of the most powerful things, right? That the power comes in all different expressions. And so I want to share the card I pulled from the Soulful Woman. As some of you know, I'm staying at an Airbnb. It feels like we've been here forever, but we've only really been here a week and a half. So I only brought a couple, I think only one Oracle deck. So I've been using this one. But look, I love that it said power. I pulled it for this podcast. It says power of my voice. I speak my truth and express my feelings to others with care and compassion. And so this specifically is talking, yes, about how power can be expressed through your voice. And I love that it says the power of my voice. And in the sentence after that, it says care and compassion. So knowing care, kindness, compassion, those are all powerful. And so this is really about finding the qualities that you express so beautifully in the world. Right? Like what are the soul qualities that you're called to be an ambassador of in the world? Maybe you bring a lot of compassion. I know that's one of mine. And why is that? I know that one, because for so long, I lived with so much judgment of myself, with so much self-judgment, self-criticism. And so I had to learn on such a deep level to be compassionate with myself. And then that in turn led to me practicing having compassion for others, right? Like it's like one of the things that I've just been practicing and always trying to dig deeper into compassion. So I know that's one of my qualities. And so for me, expressing my power would be to really start to have that conversation with my soul, with myself about, well, how do I express my compassion powerfully? Right? And so for you, maybe it's something else. Maybe one of the fuels you bring is joy, right? And it's like, and so joy is one of the soul qualities you help others with. And so then it would be asking, well, how am I meant to share joy more powerfully? Maybe you're holding back. And I have some clients who's really one of their gifts to the world is joy. But the way that they can hold back is to feel guilty for it. Well, there's so much suffering in the world. I shouldn't really be that happy. Isn't that going to make people feel bad? Or, joy is frivolous. It's not that important. So it's like they clamp it down instead of understanding if there was ever a time for joy in the world, it's when there's suffering, when there's sorrow, when there's polarity. Not joy from a place of shallowness, but true deep joy. So ask yourself, because this is going to be part of the steps, okay, what are the qualities that I am bringing into the world? Maybe it's beauty. Maybe it's being a really good listener. Maybe it's a healing modality. Maybe it's your artwork. Maybe it's, the way you can market for businesses and really bring to life their branding. Maybe it's your baking. I mean, maybe it's a book that you're writing. There's so many, so many, so many things. And then really asking, well, then, and if I were fully to express my power in that, what would be different? Like, where am I holding back in my power with that? I want to read what Summer said. Well, hello, Roxana. Summer said, I love that. I always intend to speak beauty and truth. Yes, I love that too. And so, Summer, for you, if that's one of your gifts that you bring, speaking beauty and truth, then ask yourself, well, that's awesome. And if I were to fully embrace my power and my ability to speak beauty and truth, what would that look like? What would shift? Right? And so everybody watching, whether you're here live or on the replay, ask yourself that. Like, if you're, for example, if you're someone who just has a lot of wisdom to share. Maybe you've just lived a really full life and you have a lot of wisdom to share. And then the question is like, well, how do I share that wisdom more powerfully? And it doesn't mean necessarily like you yell it louder. It's not that. It's more like, oh, are there avenues where you haven't been sharing it? Are there stories you haven't said that you're meant to actually share? Is there some voice in your head that's saying, oh, it's not important, don't share it, or people are going to judge you, or you're going to say it wrong, or it's going to be misunderstood? Just notice, like, how can you turn up the volume of your power? Because what that means is that you're turning up the volume of your soul. That's all it means. And it really all stems from that beginning. What I said at the beginning is reminding yourself of my power is sacred. It's sacred. And it's my responsibility to harness it, to steward it, to share it, to fully let it be in my body. And I was having this conversation with a client earlier today. Like, it's one thing to know this intellectually. It's one thing to hear it and be like, oh yeah, that sounds really great. Yeah, I totally believe you. That's in the intellect. What we're talking about is really bringing it into your body and into your everyday behaviors, choices, activities. That's that's what coaching does, by the way, right? That's why when I coach my clients, it's not about I'm just telling them all the stuff and they're taking notes. It's not like that at all. It's like, oh, how do we take this and apply it to our everyday life? How do I notice when I'm about to like hold back my power and then I notice it and instead do something differently? Right? Like, that's what this is about, is implementation and practice. And yes, there's going to be times where you make mistakes, where you whatever, make a fool of yourself, all the things. And when we're on this path, we're just signing up to like letting that happen. I don't mean you're going to necessarily like it, but it's like, you know, but we're willing. We're like, yep, I'm going to let go of perfectionism and I'm going to really set the intention of stepping more fully into my power. And yes, there is going to be the awkward stages where I don't do it just right, and that's okay. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to fall flat on my face. Like, I've shared this story before. This is actually from a book I read, a memoir. I think it's called, oh, gosh, I can't remember. There's two parts of it, but Immaculée Ilibagiza is her name. She was a Rwandan genocide survivor. And so I read the first book, which is her account of this amazing, miraculous, also very sad story of how she survived the Rwandan genocide, and so many of her family members were killed violently. And then the second book is kind of also amazing, kind of her recovery of that. But anyway, there's a story in there, and I won't give all the details, but the line that stood out to me that was so important for me to hear is she was going to do something that really required a lot of courage. Her power, like to speak up at a meeting where she was just a secretary. I was going to say that's how she felt, but she really had this idea about I think it was a fundraiser in Rwanda, and that nobody had thought about. And so she had prepared it all, but she was so scared and she was so nervous. And she's like, oh my gosh, all these important people are going to laugh at me. I'm just a secretary. They're not expecting me to present anything. But she's praying and she says something like, but you know what, God, I'm willing to make a fool of myself for you. And I was like, oh, that touched me so much. It still touches me now, even after all these years, that I was like, yeah, like that's what we're asked to do. Like, there are times where we're just going to make fools of ourselves. Are we willing to make fools of ourselves for our divine purpose? And the answer really, we want it to be yes, even if it's hard, even if afterwards we're embarrassed or whatever the thing is. And so I want to share with you right now the steps, right? I wrote down 4 steps. Now, of course, every step can have multiple layers to it. But here in the podcast, I really want you to understand, the podcast is different than a coaching session, right? In the podcast, I'm giving you like very powerful teachings for you to go implement on your own. It's very different if I'm having a session with someone where I can really kind of tune in specifically to your situation, right? And so take in, and I know some of my clients listen to this podcast as well. So of course you can bring those to the sessions. And for the rest of you, like really, really ask yourself, how do I take this and actually implement some of this? How do I actually have it create a more powerful version of me? Oh, so the steps. Step one. And this, what are the steps for? This is the steps of releasing the fear of your power. Okay? So step number one is you're going to set the intention. I've said this probably in 90% of my episodes. Your intention is powerful. Speaking about power. So when you set the intention, it like the universe responds. So if you're like, my intention is to embody my soul's power, to fully express my divine power that was given to me. You know, my intention is to remember that my power is sacred and it's my responsibility to harness it and steward it and share it. So you can use whatever words, I just use those. So that's the first step, setting the intention. Okay? And the second step is, and you might have done it during this podcast episode already, you're going to identify what is your fear of power, particularly around being a helper, around your divine mission, around being a change agent. Like, what are the fears you have about fully stepping into your power? You could also ask it in the sense of like, what is the relationship you have with your power? So you can try both on and see where you get most information. And so you might right away know, like, well, I don't want to abuse it, right? Or you might right away know, like, I'm kind of scared of it. What if I can't handle it, right? Or if you're like, or you might right away be like, I just think people are going to judge me for it if I fully step into my power. So, like, really get clear. Like, what you might have multiple ones, but try to identify the loudest one, the biggest one, the one that if you cleared that one, so much would be opened up for you. And I want to say, for those of you who, when you ask this question, you don't get an answer right away, that's okay. Like, it will come. Like, trust that. Like, maybe you pose the question and then you go on a walk or you listen to some music later on or something, and you start to understand or you start to observe yourself in your life, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm observing where I hold back my power. Like, I'm afraid that people are going to judge me. Oh, that's my fear of my power, that people are going to judge me for it. That's interesting. That's the fear I have. All right, so you're going to identify the fear. And then once you do that, you're going to ask your soul to help you dissolve that fear. Now, this is the step that, yes, does sometimes when you say something like that, okay, soul, dissolve this fear. Can it just happen like that? Like, it's happened, it's done, my fear is gone. I totally believe that that can happen. But usually when that happens, it's because you've already done a lot of work and it's just like a moment of grace and that happens. Most of the time, what this step looks like is, yes, there's a dissolving that is happening already. And then your soul will guide you to the resources to make this happen. Maybe there'll be a book that you're guided to read, or maybe there'll be a class that you're guided to take, or maybe there'll be a professional that you're guided to work with, or whatever it is. Right? So know that the help will come, that this will look differently each time. But the point is that you're asking, and the other thing to remember is your soul wants to help you. Your soul's like, yep, okay, I want you to be powerful because I want you to express me in the world. And then finally, the last step, and you don't have to actually wait for number 3, 2, and 3 to be done. You can actually go to number 4. A lot of the times when I share the steps, they're not even linear. There's so much like, but there's just a way it's helpful to share them that way. So the step number 4 is to, I call it, receive the truth about your power. Ask your soul, what is going to happen? What will unfold? What will be freed up? What will shift when I fully step into my power in this area? Ask to be shown that. And you might be shown that before you even uh, get the three, the number three, before you dissolve the fear. In fact, I think most of the time that's how it happens, right? You start to become aware, like, oh gosh, if I stop being afraid of my power and I stop holding back in this way, I would help so many more people. I would be so much happier. I would feel so much more fulfilled. People that I'm supposed to help would find me. I would, who knows? I mean, your soul's going to show you. Like, I don't know. It might be all sorts of different things. It might be very specific or it might be more vague. And I know that really drives our ego crazy. We're like, we want our soul to give us a whole, 3-page answer. But remember, sometimes if your soul doesn't do that, it's because your soul knows the 3-page answer would freak you out. When I left my career as a teacher, as a middle school teacher, back when I lived in Chicago, middle school is like 13, 14-year-olds, for those of you who are not from the States. And, my soul didn't give me specifics. I was already doing such a noble job. I was working as a teacher. So it was part of my purpose. So to leave that job to start something new, of course my ego wanted to know, well, what am I going to be starting? Like, what is it going to look like? Am I going to help people? And all I could hear was that, yes, I was going to help people. It was going to involve, uh, you know, at the time I was really getting training in parts work, which I still absolutely integrate with my coaching clients. I was also really delving into energy work and opening up my intuition. So I knew that it was going to combine all of that, but I had no specifics. And so I just had to be with that. I just had to like trust. That was part of my initiation was to just be like, okay, I'm going to trust and I'm going to move forward. And so, but then as time went on, as I took the steps, as I left my career as a teacher, as I started this career now that I've been on for 15 years, then I started to have more, right? More of those visions of the future, more of like, oh, wow, it's very important for me to do this work. It's very important for me to like step into my power because I'm going to help the helpers, right? And each helper helps so many people. So that's a lot of impact for me to be able to have on others, right? So you pose that question, be in that conversation, and know that whatever the answer is, we all have one part of the answer that's the same. It will bring you more joy. When you fully step into your power, it will bring you more joy, more fulfillment, because you'll have more of your soul. You'll be living more of your soul's light in the world. You'll get to see who you really are. You'll get to feel who you really are. And so that's very important also in those times where we need to remember, like, why am I doing this again? Why? Because it does take courage. I always say these steps are simple, but not necessarily easy. Because it does take courage to look inside. It does take courage to identify the fears. It does take courage to say, I want to express my power. It does take courage to know some people will judge me for it, and that sucks. I don't like feeling judged. I don't like it. I just want to be clear. I don't like it when people judge me. It's not like I'm like, yay. But I've learned to not let that be not only the most important thing, but even a thing that, it's like I had to learn. I had to learn that through a lot of experiences to be like, well, that's not the voice I'm going to listen to, right? It's like I'm staying on my path. I'm staying connected to my soul, and I'm having compassion for myself when my feelings get hurt if somebody says a judgy thing about my work or whatever. But it's like, for the most part, it's like that's background noise, right? So we're going to end here, and I'm going to pull another card. Okay, so let's do that. Oh, first of all, reminders. Okay, I'm a little thrown off because I'm not in my office. Usually I would be in my office, everything would be in its place, and it's so bizarre to be in this Airbnb. I'm not gonna lie, especially because there's air conditioning, and I'm grateful to have air conditioning because it's very hot outside. But one of the joys of moving to Mexico in the city where we live is we don't need air conditioning. The weather is so nice and beautiful, and so I haven't had like circulated air in my lungs for quite a while, and it doesn't feel good. So anyway, I went on a tangent all to explain that I forget my little routine a little bit. So what I wanted to say is masterclass is going to be next week, next Thursday. It's called Embody Your Expertise Energy. This teaching today is connected to that, right? Because your expertise energy is not from the ego. It's similar to power. So many people are like, oh, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert. I don't know that much. I still have so much to learn. I'm not ready. I don't know. I guarantee you that you are an expert in something. And I don't mean like in building model trains. I mean, like there's a wisdom that you have. And so I'm going to talk about that. Like, what does it mean to embody your expertise energy for helpers and change makers? It's a free masterclass. Next Thursday, I'll put the link in the description, and you will get the replay for 5 days. If you're my current client, you'll have the replay for as long as you're in my coaching programs. I would love to see you for that. And if you want private help, and you want to schedule a free breakthrough consultation with me, this is a 1-hour session. We'll do it over Zoom. I'll be in the Airbnb, and I will really help you. I'll take you through this very specific process, compassionate space, non-judgmental, to really identify where you are, where you want to be, what are the obstacles, the true obstacles that are in the way, because it's often not what you think, and what are the simple steps, or like what's the process that I take my clients through to help you get the results you're looking for. And that's so powerful just to have that guidance. And then if I feel I can help you further, I'll share the details of my coaching program. Right? Right now, the best way to do that is I'll put, my email is in the comments. Just send me a quick email. Say like, I want to schedule a breakthrough consult, and then we'll set that up. Usually I have a calendar link, but it's a little trickier right now as I'm not in the city where I'm at, but I definitely have time to do it, and I would love to connect with you. You don't have to prepare anything ahead of time. All right, so let's pull this message from your soul about your power. We already got the power of my voice. That was a really important one. So let's end it with another card. Right. Oh, how beautiful. Love. I think this came up last time, maybe. I don't know. Love-based reality. I am soul nurtured when I surround myself with friends and family who support a love-based reality. Look at this beautiful woman. Look at those pearls, because I remember saying she's wearing her pearls of wisdom, her pearls of power. And I love that this is coming up because it's reminding you your power is sacred. Your power is love. Your power creates a love-based reality. So I'll hold both of the cards up. The power of your voice and your love-based reality. All right? See where your eyes are drawn. See, you'll know what these cards mean specifically for you. And I can't wait to connect with you, everyone. I will see you next week in the masterclass in podcast episode 130. So excited for that. And in the breakthrough consult, if you schedule that. All right, bye, everyone.